to Lauren Bell.
I'm just taking a bunch of pictures, okay?
All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. All right. I'm Lauren Bell. I'm the director of the Reentry Division with Adult Probation. I'm here representing Chief Adult Probation Officer Karen Fletcher, who cannot be here this morning, but does want to send the message that Adult Probation is a strong supporter of Fair Chance Ordinance and movement. And as a department, we proactively support the success of people returning home from jails and prisons. Before we get really deep into this agenda, I did just want to send a couple of heartfelt thank yous. First of all, to Reentry Policy Coordinator, Ms. Jaffria Morris. Thank you so much. And then to the incredible team under the leadership of HRC Director Cheryl Davis for making things happen today. I hope that all of the efforts that you guys put in come back in the form of a lottery ticket and tons of happiness. It's incredible that we're all here today. So today commemorates 5 years since the passing of the Fair Chance Ordinance, an ordinance that speaks to the human and civil rights of people who just want to work hard, get a job, and have stable housing. Today you're going to hear from community and city leaders, people who weren't just the architects of this ordinance, but people who are current day warriors, fighting every day to make sure that we smash employment and housing barriers for people with criminal histories. All people who work hard and are determined to be the best of themselves, the best father, the best mother they can be, should find opportunities in San Francisco and beyond. And Fair Chance is about these opportunities, and it isn't a handout, it's common sense. 1 in 3 people in the United States has a criminal contact. Even if it is just an arrest record, it can have an impact on job and housing opportunities. Fair Chance in both spirit and substance is changing the landscape for people with criminal histories. In the Adult Probation Department, 2 of our amazing colleagues are people with criminal histories. The Sheriff's Department program team includes people with criminal histories. So many of our amazing community leaders and community organizations are led by people with criminal histories. Many of us were recently this week at a conference by Checker, a private organization. They are leading an effort in advocating for fair chance employment. And the list goes on. Change is slow as heck, but it is happening. I got this shirt that I'm wearing last night at a Cirque du Soleil show, and it reads, "We rise by lifting each other up." As you listen to each amazing speaker this morning who comes to the podium, I hope you feel lifted and even more connected to a strong group of people who truly cares about the rights of people with criminal histories. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the podium Mr. Jose Bernal.
Hey everyone, thank you all for being here. My name is Jose Bernal. I serve on the San Francisco Reentry Council, and I've been appointed twice unanimously by the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. I also chair that body's legislation and policy subcommittee. I am also somebody who was released from custody just 6 years ago. And when I got released, I'm going to tell you that it was pre-Fair Chance Ordinance. And I clearly, vividly remember applying to a restaurant not too far from here to bus tables. And I clearly, vividly remember making it to an interview, me coming out and me just wanting a job, and the manager liking me, telling me he's going to get back to me. And I vividly, clearly remember getting a phone call of him telling me that because of my record, they're gonna go with somebody else. And again, all I wanted was a job, right? And so this here, what we are doing in remembrance and also in pushing for the Fair Chance Ordinance, but to push a narrative out there, one that looks at us, looks at folks with who have prior criminal convictions as human beings, because that is who we are. We're members of this community. We're folks, we're fathers, we're brothers, we're people who go to work, we're people who pay our taxes. We are members of this society. And so it's really important for us to continue that narrative and to push back. Hello? Okay. I do want to, uplift everything that's here and everyone here, and just thank you all for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. The next gentleman that's going to come up to the microphone really needs no introduction. He is the OG of the Ban the Box. He is part of the architects that built the Fair Chance Ordinance, and he is working every single day to fight for the rights of people with criminal histories. Please welcome Mr. Dorsey Nunn.
Good morning. You know, if you see me take off, I got a staff meeting I got to go to. But the reality of it is at this point I got 20 people working for me. 17 of them are formerly incarcerated. So when they talk about other organizations that got multi-million-dollar budgets, how many of us did they really employ in compared to the numbers that they actually got employed overall? And when we talk about Ban the Box, we talk about it as an instrument that meant that what we decided to do years and years ago was fight structural discrimination. It was more than just a box on the employment application. It was more than just a box on housing. It was also the box on public benefits. It also was the box on life insurance. It was also the box on opportunities, what y'all call a fair chance. You describe it like it's a risk. How come it couldn't be a fair opportunity? That comes from the next generation of organizers. The ones that came behind me that start talking about the opportunity as opposed to describing it as a nature and a risk. So in the language that we pushed out, San Francisco was a very special place. It was where we initiated our campaign, when people thought that we were crazy. Now we got over 35 states that done banned the box. We got over 150 municipalities that done banned the box. We got over 13 states that done banned the box in the private sector, and we done did it throughout the whole state of California. So when we start driving this thing, what happened when your vision of your own humanity outpaced the vision that people have for you? Because at this point, all of us in non-illegal services done bought a half a block in Oakland. At this point, what we decided to do was hire a general contractor that was formerly incarcerated. We embedded in the understanding that he had to hire formerly incarcerated people. So before we got gentrified in San Francisco and moved to Oakland, what we decided to do was to actually start taking up space and institutionalize our struggle. So when I was saying that we bought the property, we hired the general contractor, the other thing that happened? We became property developers. We could decide if we asked the question or not ask the question. So like we need to get past, or we just looking for simple employment as opposed to real opportunities. Because they will give you a simple job, but it will not be enough to feed your family. It will not be enough to actually buy a house. They will release you from prison with no rental history, no work stub, or anything else for you to establish credit. So where do you join this fight at? Where do you invest in it at? So, when y'all say a criminal history, the first thing that we did away with when we was in San Francisco is stop calling it a criminal history and start calling it a conviction history. Because why do you call yourself something that ain't gonna actually advance your cause? So like the first part of it, if you're gonna challenge the dominant narrative, you're going to challenge it through language. So watch the language that you use. And if you don't watch the language that you use, did I get through that all that without cussing so far? I'm surprising myself this morning. You know, because like at a certain point, I can remember sitting in the earlier meetings when we was talking about what we was gonna do, and I could see the light bulbs going on people's head when they moving it from a criminal conviction history to just a conviction history. I can remember sitting in the room with women, black people, and Latinos, and asking them the real question: do you remember when you couldn't enter the room? So like, you know, we shouldn't be the gatekeepers that keep people excluded from the space. And I can remember the first question when we started saying that we want to speak in our own voice. Everybody that told me how talented I was, how articulate I was, start asking the question, well, what am I gonna do? And I said, I don't know, but one thing that I'm gonna do is stop being your client. Because the greatest distance between me and my freedom is walking in the shoes of somebody else as a client. And by the way, what the definition of client means is dependent upon. So I'm asking you to think a little bit broader, because y'all, I'm old at this point. I shouldn't be the radical person on stage. I should be like struggling to keep up with y'all as opposed to y'all keeping up with me. So like, you know, like I said, if you didn't notice, we had a presidential forum, formerly incarcerated people convened that in Philadelphia. I just got finished having 50 people from something like 22 states in the building, you know, and we beginning to stop arguing over crumbs and actually start breaking bread with each other, which means that we could be a real force, you know. So if nobody told you, last year we had 3 major victories. We passed Amendment 4 in Florida that gave over 1 million people their right to vote back. In Louisiana, we got the unanimous jury verdict because it used to only take 10 people to find you guilty in that state, and that was headed by a vote in Norris. And in Colorado, they just went all the way crazy. And what they did was something that we should have did from the beginning. What they removed out of the state constitution is the use of the term slavery and involuntary servitude for punishment. Those are the things that I ask you to keep up. So if you do get a job, our community needs to know that it's more than a job that you want. So it's like, you know, look for a job, that's good, but look for a future to give you a career. All right.
Mr. Nunn, I just want to say from the most respectful place of my heart and my mind, you are an amazing person, and we thank you for everything that you do. Thank you so much for being here on this morning. So the next woman that's going to come up to the podium has been a champion of people with criminal histories from day one when she was a member of the Board of Supervisors, and even in her new role on a national level continues to elevate everybody's understanding of who is in the criminal justice system and what their rights are and what the opportunities should be. So please welcome to the mic former Supervisor Jane Kim.
Thank you so much, Lauren. And it's always a little tough to go after Dorsey Nunn, but Dorsey was the heart of this campaign when we were lobbying this ordinance at the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. And it's always amazing to see what has happened over the last 5 years, because now everyone supports this measure. But when we started this work in 2013, we barely had 5 votes on the Board of Supervisors, and that was on a good day. And we already knew that the mayor's office was set to veto this measure. We had strong opposition from so many folks who were just scared about what this meant. But this group of organizations, including Dorsey, All of Us or None, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, the National Employment Law Center, Community Housing Partnership, worked with our office for a year and a half before we even introduced this ordinance. And what we spent time doing was actually a major lesson for me, because I was ready to go forward with this ordinance even if we didn't have the vote, because it was the right thing to do. But this community decided it was going to spend time educating the folks that were scared about what this ordinance meant for our city. Was this going to make our city less safe? Was this going to put employers at risk? And so many of the individuals in this room sat down every single week with members of the Chamber of Commerce, with employers, with small business owners. And through their stories, they were actually able to persuade and convince these employers that were scared that this was absolutely the right thing to do for our city. And that we are all better off when people who want to work have the opportunity to do so without any type of discrimination or pre-classification because folks see a conviction or arrest history on their record. This was a truly historic effort. And after that year and a half of sitting across the table and doing that education work, no one was more surprised than me when the Chamber of Commerce director himself came to the land use ordinance hearing and said, when I first read this bill, I called it the Fat Chance I'll Hire a Convict Ordinance. This is all on public record. And then he went on to say, but now I think we don't go far enough. This is just the first step. That's the real work. We can pass all the ordinances that we want. But if the city's not on board, if our employers aren't on board, we know it won't truly get implemented. And I just want to thank this group for their patience, their perseverance, for sharing their stories, for actually moving people so that we had 11 members of the board vote for this ordinance, and the mayor personally signing it. That was a year and a half of perseverance, and we got a better deal out of it. And by the way, we did make compromises to get that legislation across 5 years ago. But then 3 years later, the state of California passed an even stronger measure. And that would not have happened if not for the efforts of education and outreach that happened with this group here today. So I want to thank all of the organizations that I mentioned above. I also do want to thank the San Francisco Small Business Commission, the Chamber of Commerce, the Department of Human Resources, OLSC at the time, Donna Levitt, Office of Contract Administrator at the time, Jackie Fong, my chief of staff at the time, who helped draft this ordinance with the community, Ivy Lee, who now works with President Norman Yee. And just all of the individuals that shared their stories, because now we have not just had a citywide impact, we had a statewide impact, and we will continue to have a national impact, and that starts at the grassroots level. Thank you very much.
So certainly the needle on change is going to move through the self-determination of community, but it definitely helps to have leadership on the inside that is supporting all of the efforts. So we definitely thank Jane Kim for all of her work. The next person that is going to come to the mic, Director Cheryl Davis, is no stranger to most people that are out here, and her work to support people with criminal histories is incredible. Please welcome Director Davis.
So I am not going to take up much time because I think the stars of this work are the community that have been pushing for this work and that have held us accountable. I also just want to recognize former Supervisor Jane Kim, but I think the leadership to listen to community and listen to the needs and actually push that forward should be celebrated and recognized. I also want to honor Zoe Polk, who at the time was at the Human Rights Commission that really helped organize. Yes, please give a round of applause to Zoe Polk, who really led this work, both in our office and nationally, to raise awareness. And I want to recognize Noah Forgo, who helped with a lot of the signage for today. You know, all we do, or all we're supposed to do, is really listen to the call of community and amplify that voice. And I am just grateful to be able to be in partnership with folks who know what's real and who are willing to hold us accountable. So I just want to echo what Dorsey Nunn said. This should not be the last stop, right? This is the beginning of something, and that we should be pushing to be more radical and think about what the next thing is. And I like the challenge to think about opportunity versus chances, right? Like, how are we making sure that we recognize and celebrate not just the talent, but that we also recognize that being willing and able does not always open the door of opportunity. And so the challenge for us today is what's next. And what's next, I think, is the challenge to the call to have more opportunities for everyone, and for us to not let criminal history define people, but let people's character and who they are and their work ethic really decide what their next employment opportunity will be.
So oftentimes when ordinances like this happen, sometimes they become a piece of paper on a shelf. And I just want to really underscore the work of Director Davis for upholding the power of this ordinance and holding accountability to it. And our next speaker does this as well for employment opportunities for people with conviction histories. Thank you. Mr. Pat Mulligan.
Thank you. It's an honor to oversee the enforcement of such an important law, supporting fair opportunity and equity in the workforce. A recent investigation, which I think is typical for our office, was an individual who was interviewed and hired for a construction supply firm. Construction industry being one that normally doesn't provide steep barriers for employment for ex-offenders. Unfortunately, after employment, there a couple of weeks, employer did a background check and found a 23-year-old conviction. Upon that, terminated the employment. Fortunately, the individual knew their rights, contacted our office. Their employment was fully restored, and they received full compensation for all time lost over the employment. That's how this law is supposed to be enforced. And I would say, moving forward, most employers of 20 or more in this city are aware of their obligations on it. I would say more so we need to educate the public, and individuals who would benefit from it. I'd say an additional challenge for our office are employers who are more recently covered, between 5 and 20. And unfortunately, there's more employers in San Francisco between 5 and 19 than there are 20 and up. So our work is cut out for us to make sure everybody is aware of this law and that we're enforcing fair opportunity and equity. Thank you, everybody.
It can never be stressed too many times that the narrative of why we're here today really comes from the people who are impacted by the criminal justice system and whose successes shine light on opportunities for others. So I really want us to give a very warm welcome to the next speaker, who is going to tell a little bit about her story and how Fair Chance, Second Chance opportunities helped her. Please welcome Ms. Joy McDonald.
Hello. Well, I guess you could say that Fair Chance is one of the most important things in my life. What you see today is not the person I was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I was a young girl that was completely out of control and had no clue on how to live life. Unfortunately, I got in a little bit of trouble and ended up in jail. Well, I came to San Francisco 20 years ago to try to change my life around. It was a lot of hard work. I went to a wonderful nonprofit organization here in the city and spent 10 years there, learning how to rebuild my life, how to be productive, how to be a good person for my community and what I do here. And fortunately, right when this act was actually getting instated, I decided to leave from that program. I was scared out of my mind. With a criminal history background, was I going to be able to find a job? Someone took a risk on me, and someone took a chance. It is the best thing that's ever happened in my life. I gained community, I gained mentors, I became proud of myself and my independence and actually learned how to be a good person and impact my community. Nowadays, I actually have worked up the ranks in my company that I work for, starting at the bottom, but community is the basics to everything. I'm now the GM at the Market on Market, located at Market Square, which is located in the bottom of the Twitter building, and I actually get to give back. That is the most important thing to me, is to be able to impact people's lives just like somebody took the time and the chance to be able to impact mine. We do have several second chance employees that do work at the market. I'm very proud of that. I actually work with a lot of companies and nonprofits that are here in the city to make sure that the people coming out of programs, out of jail, out of prison, have a place to actually land and give themselves a chance. That is the most important part on how you can impact people's life. Give someone a chance. Pay it forward. Be somebody in your community that's going to stand up and be proud of who you are. When somebody asks, are you a second chance employer? Yes, but I also tell them I was given a second chance. So for all of you, the march actually is going to end up at the market. We are very proud to be those people that can say thank you to our community.
Thank you so much, Joy. That was amazing. And to echo her message about encouraging other employers to step into becoming a fair chance employer, it's all of our obligation to talk to employers and explain the real deal to people so that they understand that there's so much untapped opportunity in hiring people with criminal histories. So the next person is another extremely important person who helped to develop the Fair Chance Ordinance. His office was also instrumental in helping us to put together this event today. Please welcome to the stage San Francisco's President of the Board of Supervisors, Mr. Norman Yee.
Thank you very much. You know, I couldn't miss the opportunity to come here and support this. It's not about a second chance, it's about a chance that everybody deserves. Nobody should be paying a debt twice. Nobody. You buy a house, you pay your mortgage, it's not right to say, hey, you pay your mortgage, pay it again. And this is what we need to do. And I'm real proud to be the only standing supervisor today that voted for this ordinance in 2014, authored by, at the time, Supervisor Jane Kim. Thank you very much, Jane Kim. We need to do better. We need to do more. One of the things is, it's one thing to say, give them a chance, but we also have to develop in the city the infrastructure for people. People that are parents, for instance, coming out of jail, they might have young kids. Well, the second chance isn't going to happen if they don't have childcare, for instance. This is another thing that I've been working on, and many of my colleagues have been supporting early education. And by having that free of charge to our people in San Francisco, it gives the opportunity for people that are coming out of prison a chance to make it better for their lives and for their children. I will continue to fight for those type of opportunities, for those support system that everybody needs. And, you know, yes, I am the only one that voted on it in 2014, but yeah, all right, yeah, I'm old. But, if that vote were to come up today, every single person on the Board of Supervisors today would vote yes on it. So we will continue to push it. Thank you for your legacy, Jane Kim. Thank you.
So part of today is definitely a demonstration to everybody